بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وسئل الشيخ محمد بن إبراهيم آل الشيخ رحمه الله إن الله سبحانه وتعالى أباح الفطر على المسافر إن كان أهله معه ثم جامع أهله وهو بالسفر نهارا فما يكون عليه الحكم الشرعي أفيدونا جزاكم الله خيرا ونسترحم إفادتنا ننتظر ذلك بفارغ الصبر. So the question says, and the question is posed to Shaykh Muhammad ibn Ibrahim Aali Shaykh, may Allah have mercy upon him. The questioner says, indeed Allah the Exalted, the Sublime the Exalted, He has allowed the Muslim who travels to break his fast. He doesn't have to fast. He has the option of making fitr, of not fasting, eating and drinking. So if a Muslim man is traveling and he has with him his family, his wife or wives, and then he has intercourse with one of them while he's traveling in the daytime of Ramadan, what's the ruling on this? What's the ruling on this? Please explain this to us. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward you and bless you. فأجاب, the answer says, إذا كان مسافرا سفر قصر وكان ذلك السفر غير سفر معصية فإن له الفطر في نهار رمضان دل على ذلك الكتاب والسنة والإجماع. First and foremost, if the Muslim is traveling a distance that allows him to shorten his prayer, and the trip that he's upon is a trip in which he is performing for the obedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's not a trip in which he's disobeying Allah. It's a trip in which he's obeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then he is allowed to break his fast. He's allowed not to fast. This is proven by the kitab, the sunnah, and the ijma', the consensus. He's traveling in the daytime, and the distance in which he was shortening prayer, and it's a trip in which he's obeying Allah, he's not disobeying Allah. It's lawful for him to break his fast. Fatwa then states, بل عند طائفة من العلماء أنه لا يجزيه لو صام عن صيام رمضان. Rather, to go further, he says, according to some scholars, he can't even fast Ramadan while traveling. If he fasted while traveling, it wouldn't be valid. والنصوص من الكتاب والسنة الدالة على فطره بالسفر المذكور لم تفرق في تعاطيه المفطرات بين أكل وشرب وجماع بل له تعاطى الجميع من غير فرق وحينئذ فهذا المنجمع المذكور في السؤال لا يلزمه شيء. The texts from the Quran and the Sunnah, the ayat and the ahadith, all of them prove is that he's allowed to refrain from fasting. He's allowed to fast while he travels. And there's no difference. There's no distinction made between one thing or another which breaks the fast. There's no verse in the Quran or hadith that says he can eat but he can't drink. He can drink but he can't eat. Or he can eat and drink but he can't have sexual intercourse. None of that is stated. None of that is stated. Therefore, he is allowed to perform anything which would normally break the fast. He can eat, he can drink, he can have sexual intercourse. And there's no difference. So therefore, based off of your question, if someone has sexual intercourse in the daytime of Ramadan while traveling, there's no sin upon them. There's nothing upon them. Moving forward. بل هنا مسألة أبلغ من ذلك. He says, and there's an issue, a discussion which is even deeper, which is even more interesting, which goes even further. وهي أنه لو صام في السفر ثم جامع في هذا الصيام فسد صومه فقط ولا كفارة عليه لوطئه المذكور لأنه محكوم بفطره من حين عزم على الجماع فلم يقع جماعه المذكور في صوم لفطره قبله بعزمه على الجماع والله أعلم. And that is, if a person travels and they fast when they're traveling and then they had sexual intercourse, the only thing that would happen or take place is that the fast would be broken. That's it. There will be no kafara, there will be no expiation, no atonement, nothing to pay. And that is because the person, he broke his fast before he actually performed sexual intercourse with his wife. He's not the same as one who's fasting and then has intercourse. That person has to make up the day, make the kafara, the tawbah, etc. La. That is because he wasn't even fasting, because when he decided to have sexual intercourse, he was determined to break his fast, so his fast was already broken. His fasting was already broken when he made the decision to do it. So he did not violate his fast. That was an option for him to fast in the first place. All right, khair inshallah. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sure knows best. That's the end of the fatwa. And it was very interesting, the question, and a very interesting fatwa. And from the things that we can learn from this fatwa, from the question before the fatwa, is that there's no shyness when it comes to learning the deen. There is no dumb question or embarrassing question or what's wrong with you or you shut out or that's, oh, why are you even thinking like that? And as many ignorant Muslims would say today, including imams in masjids, astaghfirullah, how you gonna ask a question like that? You can't ask a question like that. What's wrong with you? Why is your mind in the gutter? So on and so forth. That's first and foremost. Secondly, as we say, real recognize real. You meet the energy that's brought to you. This is the question. The questioner is brave, courageous. They're not shy. They want to know. The Mufti is to meet the questioner with the same energy that he brought. So I'm going to answer your question. I'm going to be real with you. I'm going to keep it real with you. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm going to be upfront with you. And I'm going to explain to you what Allah and His Messenger have said and ruled and judged in this matter, in this issue. Thirdly, we see different details with regards to traveling and what the different madhabs, the four schools and other schools, what they say concerning when a person travels, what they can and cannot do, and what is considered traveling. Here, and obviously, i.e. reminder, the Shaykh here, may Allah have mercy upon him, he was Hanbali, and obviously he was one of the previous Muftis of Saudi Arabia, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, some years ago. So he's Hanbali, and in other schools, they believe that all traveling, any type of traveling, doesn't allow you to shorten a prayer, but it's only a travel or trip or traveling which is of a certain distance. All right. Secondly, they also stipulate, like other schools from the four schools and others, they stipulate that the trip cannot be a trip of disobedience. It can't be a trip in which you're going to disobey Allah in. And some scholars and some schools, some imams, they stipulate that the trip not just can't be a trip of disobedience, but it has to be safar ta'ah. It has to be a trip of obedience, meaning you're making this journey for Hajj, for Umrah, for Jihad, for Hijrah, an act of ibadah, and not just a trip. All right, that's a discussion in itself. Is that correct? What do the other scholars say? That's a discussion in itself. Moving forward, a very important point that we learned from this fatwa is that there is no distinction with regards to things that are allowed and lawful. And once again, many ignorant Muslims today, including some imams, some sheikhs, they would say, oh, he can eat and drink, yes, but he can't have sex. That's impermissible because that's being greedy, that's violating the rules, that's he can eat and drink. All right, the proof that he can eat is what? The proof that he can drink is what? What are the sources of that proof and evidence? It's the Quran and the Sunnah, right? So where does the Quran and Sunnah say anything about this being lawful but that being unlawful? So fiqh and the fatwa has to be consistent. It has to be consistent. It has to remain consistent, and it can't fall into a contradiction of separating things which Allah and His Messenger have not separated, or putting things together that Allah and His Messenger have clearly made separated. That's extremely important. Khairan inshallah. Also, we benefit from this fatwa how the Mufti is to give more. He's allowed, and in some cases encouraged, in some cases obliged to give more than what he was asked, especially if he feels that the people are going to need the additional information. Later on, they're going to need it, or they may be too shy, or they don't want to be, too aggressive or too overburdening to ask about something that they really need to know and really need to hear about. Okay, and we've explained that in the 40 Hadith on Seeking Knowledge, Volume 2, with regards to the best teachers or those who give the most. Those who give the most. Okay, طيب. And it goes to show you how deep things can get and how knowledge, it protects you from, obviously protects you from ignorance, but it protects you from thinking in a certain way and looking at things in a certain way. How the learned person looks at an issue is not like how the ignorant person looks. The ignorant person, he walks away. The knowledgeable person is totally different. Okay, so that's important. And of course, it goes to show, based off of this view, is that inna al-azma ala al-iftar, that when a person is determined to break his fast, and when he has made up his mind to break his fast, he's already broken his fast. Many scholars, they hold the view is that if a person is determined, not I thought about it, it crossed my mind, but if they're determined to do it, then they have already broken their fast. And that's interesting, huh? That's interesting. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala surely knows best.